There's a simple truth that separates those who talk about success and those who actually live it, the habit of writing things down. It sounds small, maybe even trivial, but behind every person who builds something lasting, something meaningful, you'll find a notebook filled with ideas, goals, and reminders of what mattered most when the noise of life tried to drown them out. You see, most people don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because they forget. The human mind is a magnificent instrument, but it's not designed to store. It's designed to create. When you keep everything locked inside your head, your dreams become like sand slipping through your fingers. One moment you're inspired, and the next, it's gone. That's why you need to write it down. Writing it down is how you tell the world and yourself that this matters. It's not just a passing thought or a fleeting emotion. It's a declaration. Every time you pick up a pen, you're saying, I will not let this idea die in silence. Think of it this way: every great invention, every movement, every breakthrough began as a few words on paper. The Wright brothers wrote down their sketches. Einstein filled notebooks with messy equations. Jim Rohn, the master of personal development, once said, "Don't trust your memory. When an idea shows up, capture it. Because ideas don't visit twice. They go to someone else who's ready to receive them." The act of writing creates a connection between your thoughts and your actions. When you write your goals, you move them from the intangible world of imagination into the tangible world of possibility. You take responsibility for them. Suddenly, it's no longer, someday I'll. It becomes, this is what I'm going to do. Writing focuses your energy. In a world filled with distractions, phones buzzing, messages popping up, thoughts racing, it's easy to lose track of what really matters. But when you sit down with a notebook and write your intentions, everything slows down. The noise fades. You start hearing your own voice again, the voice that knows what you want and why you want it. Have you ever noticed how the simple act of writing can change your emotions? When you're anxious and you write about it, clarity begins to form. When you're lost, journaling becomes a compass. Writing is therapy for the mind and fuel for the spirit. It's a conversation between who you are and who you're becoming. Many people dream big, but never write those dreams down. They carry them like fragile glass, afraid to put them into words because once written, it feels real, and being real means being accountable. But accountability is the birthplace of greatness. When you write your dream, you make a promise to yourself, a silent contract that says, I'm serious about this. Writing it down gives structure to the abstract. It turns the fog of uncertainty into a roadmap. If you ever feel stuck, sit down and write out the next step. Just the next one. You don't need to see the whole path. The act of writing the next step brings you one step closer. The pen has a quiet power to move you forward, even when you're unsure of the destination. Imagine for a moment your goals, dreams, and lessons all written down in one place. Every page becomes a mirror reflecting your growth. You'll see where you started, how far you've come, and where you still need to go. The pages of your journal are the footprints of your evolution. But writing doesn't only serve the future. It anchors you in the present. When you write what you're grateful for, your mind stops racing toward what's missing. Gratitude journaling turns ordinary moments into blessings. It trains your eyes to see abundance instead of lack. Because what you write repeatedly becomes what you believe, and what you believe shapes your destiny. The truth is, Life moves fast. Thoughts disappear, ideas fade, moments pass. But words written on paper last. They remind you of your purpose when you lose sight of it. They whisper. Remember why you started. When the journey gets hard. There will be days when your motivation feels distant, when you question your ability, when life seems overwhelming. That's when your written words become your allies. You'll read the goals you wrote, the vision you crafted, and something inside you will reignite. It's like leaving notes of strength for your future self. Now, let's talk about the discipline behind writing it down. Because writing isn't just about passion, it's about practice. You have to make it a ritual. Each day, take a few minutes to record your thoughts, your lessons, your gratitude, your vision. Do it consistently, even when you don't feel like it. Because consistency turns intention into transformation. Jim Rohn once said, "Don't let your learning lead to knowledge. Let your learning lead to action." Writing bridges that gap. When you write down what you've learned, it's not just knowledge anymore. It becomes strategy. It becomes direction. You start connecting the dots. A person who writes daily is a person who grows daily. Writing keeps you honest. It reveals patterns in your behavior. It shows you what you keep saying you'll do, but haven't done yet. It keeps your goals visible and your excuses exposed. And that's the power of paper. It doesn't lie. Now, some people say, "I don't have time to write." But the truth is, you don't have time not to. Writing saves time in the long run because it prevents confusion, clarifies decisions, and strengthens focus. You don't need hours. Just 5 minutes of writing each morning can change the trajectory of your day. Start small. Write your top 3 priorities. Write what you're grateful for. Write one thing you learned today. Write one thing you'll do better tomorrow. Over time, those small notes become your legacy. Writing is also an act of humility. It acknowledges that your memory isn't perfect, that your thoughts are fleeting, and that your mind needs help keeping track of what matters. It's not a weakness. It's wisdom. The wise write not because they forget easily, but because they understand the value of remembering intentionally. Think about how many brilliant ideas died because someone said, "I'll remember that later." Later never came. The universe offers ideas like gifts, but only to those who are prepared to receive them. Writing is your way of saying, "I'm ready." When you write, you also invite creativity. Words lead to more words. Ideas breed ideas. The blank page becomes a playground for your mind. It's where problems are solved, dreams are designed, and identities are shaped. And remember this, the pen doesn't just write goals, it writes character. When you journal your struggles and reflect on your lessons, you become more self-aware. You start to see how your thoughts shape your behavior and how your behavior shapes your destiny. Writing turns living into learning. You don't have to be a great writer to write great things. You just have to be honest. The pages don't judge. They don't criticize your grammar or question your worth. They simply hold space for you to show up exactly as you are. Maybe you've been carrying ideas for years, business plans, dreams, visions, thoughts that visit you late at night. Don't let them die unwritten. Start now. Grab a notebook and write them down. Every word is a seed. You never know which one will bloom into the next big chapter of your life. Your written words are like anchors in the ocean of life. When storms come, and they will, your written goals keep you steady. Your notes remind you of who you are and where you're headed. Because it's easy to drift when life gets chaotic, but hard to lose your way when your path is written in ink. Writing is also how you measure growth. One day, you'll open an old journal and smile at how far you've come. You'll read the worries that once felt so heavy and realize you overcame them. You'll see your old goals and think, I've done that. That's the beauty of writing. It lets you witness your own evolution. Even if no one ever reads what you write, write anyway. Not every word needs to be shared. Some words are just for you, for your peace, your clarity, your alignment. Because the most important reader of your writing is your future self. And here's something powerful. What you write down begins to influence your subconscious. Your mind starts to work on your goals, even when you're not consciously thinking about them. It's the law of focus. What you write often, you begin to manifest. The pen might seem small, but it's one of the most powerful tools of creation. Writing builds a bridge between where you are and where you want to go. Without it, you're just floating, reacting to life instead of directing it. But with it, you're steering your ship with clarity. Every successful person in any field has used writing as a tool. Athletes write their affirmations. Entrepreneurs write their visions. Artists write their inspiration. They all know that writing creates alignment between thought and action. So here's the challenge starting today. Become a writer, not necessarily of books, but of your own life. Write your goals every morning. Write your gratitude every night. Write your lessons when you fail. Write your dreams before they fade. Because the moment you write it down, you start to own it. Imagine this a year from now. You're flipping through your notebook, reading your goals, and realizing how many came true. You'll see evidence of growth, faith, and resilience. And you'll understand that it all started with one simple decision: to write it down. Don't wait for motivation to strike. Don't wait for the perfect words. Just start writing. Because writing is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about taking what's inside and putting it where you can see it, feel it, and build upon it. Your pen can become your compass, your coach, your friend, and your legacy. So the next time inspiration visits you, don't say, I'll remember it. Say, let me write that down. Because what you write, you give life to. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that everything extraordinary you've achieved began with a few simple words written on an ordinary page. So write it down. Your goals, your dreams, your gratitude, your lessons. Because the words you write today will become the life you live tomorrow. Writing is not just recording thoughts. It's the act of giving your ideas life, direction, and permanence. What you write, you start to own. Think about that for a moment. Every time you put words on paper, you are breathing life into something that didn't exist before. You're giving shape to the invisible. You're saying to yourself and to the world, this matters. This thought, this dream, this idea deserves to exist beyond my mind. Because when you only think about something, it's like smoke. It rises, it drifts, it disappears. But when you write it, it takes form. It becomes real. It has weight. It becomes part of your story. Writing turns imagination into identity. It transforms maybe one day into, this is who I am becoming. When you write, you stop being just a dreamer. You become a creator. You shift from wishing to designing. The page becomes your workshop, and the pen becomes your tool for building a future that has direction and purpose. When you write something down, it's no longer a passing idea floating in your head. It's a commitment. It's now something you can see, read, revisit, and refine. That's how ownership begins. You start to feel accountable for the things you've written, because now they're real. You can't argue with the ink on the page. It stares back at you with honesty. It doesn't let you hide behind forgetfulness or excuses. If you wrote that you wanted to get in shape, the page reminds you. If you wrote that you wanted to start a business, the page challenges you. Writing is the mirror that reflects your truth, who you are and who you intend to become. And here's the beauty of it: ownership gives birth to responsibility, and responsibility gives birth to progress. The moment you write something down, you begin to take responsibility for it. You start thinking differently. You start asking, what steps do I need to take to make this happen? That's when change begins. Writing also gives direction to the raw energy of your thoughts. Every day, thousands of thoughts pass through your mind. Ideas, emotions, worries, dreams. Without writing, they stay tangled together, fighting for your attention. But when you write, you untangle them. You put them in order. You give them purpose. It's like building a road for your thoughts to travel on. Before writing, everything is scattered. After writing, there's a path, a sense of direction. You can see where you're going. You can measure how far you've come. And then there's permanence. The written word endures. It outlives memory. It captures moments that would otherwise be lost forever. One day, you'll look back through your old notes or journals and realize that those words were more than ink. They were milestones. They were pieces of your growth preserved in time. The things you write today may be forgotten by your mind tomorrow, but they will still be there on paper, waiting to remind you of who you were and what you wanted. That's why writing is not just about today. It's about tomorrow and the person you're becoming. Every great life begins with words that were once written in silence. Every dream fulfilled began with a few lines that said, I can, or I will. When you write it, you give it permission to exist. And once it exists, you can begin to chase it, shape it, and live it. Writing is creation. Writing is clarity. Writing is commitment. And most importantly, writing is ownership. What you write, you start to own your dreams, your direction, your destiny. The process of writing transforms confusion into clarity. When you write, you organize the unseen. You turn the invisible into the visible. We all go through moments when our minds feel like a storm. Thoughts colliding, emotions spinning, ideas half-formed and scattered in every direction. It's like standing in a fog, trying to find your way without being able to see the path ahead. But something incredible happens when you start to write. The fog begins to lift. The noise begins to settle. The chaos in your head begins to find its rhythm. Writing is the art of sorting through the clutter. It's like taking a tangled ball of thread. Your worries, dreams, questions, doubts, and slowly unraveling it until you can see what's really there. Because here's the truth. Most of our confusion doesn't come from not knowing, but from not expressing. The moment you express what's in your mind, you begin to understand it. You see, the act of writing forces your thoughts to slow down. The mind can race at 100 miles an hour, but the pen moves only one word at a time. That's the magic of it. It slows your thinking to a pace you can manage, reflect on, and shape. Writing is how you wrestle your thoughts into order. It's how you separate what's important from what's just noise. When you write, you start to see patterns that weren't obvious before. You begin to notice the real reasons behind your emotions, the hidden beliefs behind your decisions, the quiet fears behind your hesitation. Writing gives form to the formless. It takes what's abstract and makes it concrete. Think about it. How often have you felt overwhelmed, unsure what to do next, until you wrote down your thoughts, and suddenly things made sense? That's not coincidence. That's clarity being born. The page becomes your mirror, reflecting your inner world in a way that lets you see what needs to change, what needs to grow, and what needs to go. Writing is the bridge between your inner chaos and your outer calm. It's where confusion becomes understanding, and where understanding becomes direction. Every sentence you write is a step toward making sense of yourself and your world. When you feel lost, write. When you feel stuck, write. When you don't know what you want, write until you do. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from expressing honestly. Writing is also a filter for the soul. It filters the noise of the world through the quiet of your own truth. It helps you see what's real. It separates borrowed opinions from genuine conviction. When you write, you stop echoing what others say and start discovering what you truly believe. Sometimes, you don't even know what you think until you see it on paper. You might start writing about one thing, and by the end, you realize something deeper was hidden underneath all along. That's the power of writing. It reveals you to yourself. The page has no judgment, no criticism. It's a safe space where you can pour out your confusion and, in return, receive clarity. You can write things you're not ready to say out loud. You can explore ideas that scare you, feelings you don't understand, dreams you're afraid to chase. And somehow, through that process, you find peace. Writing transforms confusion into clarity because it allows you to take what's swirling in your mind and put it where you can see it. Once it's visible, you can work with it. You can shape it, question it, challenge it, or change it. The invisible becomes the visible. And suddenly, you realize the answer was there all along. You just needed to write it out to see it. So when life feels messy, when the world feels overwhelming, when your thoughts are loud and your path feels uncertain, sit down with your pen. Write what you feel. Write what you fear. Write what you hope for. Don't try to make it perfect. Just write until it starts to make sense. Writing it down is how dreams begin to take shape. It's how you turn someday into now, and I wish into I will. You see, every dream starts as a whisper inside you, a quiet thought, a flicker of imagination, a vision of a better future. But as long as it stays trapped in your mind, it remains fragile. It can disappear with distraction, fade with time, or be drowned by doubt. That's why so many dreams die before they ever see the light of day, because they were never written, never captured, never claimed. But the moment you write it down, something changes. You move from thinking to creating. You cross an invisible line, from fantasy to intention. Writing is how you plant your dream into the soil of reality. It's how you say, this isn't just a thought anymore. This is the beginning of something real. The simple act of writing transforms a wish into a plan. When you say, I wish I could start a business, it's just a hope. But when you write, I will start my business by this date, everything shifts. Your brain starts working differently. Your subconscious starts searching for opportunities. Your energy starts aligning with your words. That's the magic of writing. It activates commitment. The written word is powerful because it demands accountability. You can think about your goals all day long and feel good about them. But when you write them, you've made a declaration. You've put it in ink. You've said, "This is mine." And that changes everything. Dreams are like seeds. They need to be planted before they can grow. And writing is that first planting. It's how you move your dreams out of your imagination and into the real world, where they can take root and multiply. When you write down your dreams, you give them shape, size, and direction. You start asking, what would it look like? What steps could I take? Who could help me? What's the first move? The dream that once seemed too big to grasp suddenly becomes something you can plan for, something you can work toward, something you can measure. Writing turns daydreams into blueprints. It's the first draft of your future. And like any great builder, you can't construct anything lasting without a plan. A builder without a blueprint builds blindly. A dreamer without writing dreams vaguely. But the dreamer who writes builds deliberately. Think of the people who've accomplished extraordinary things. They didn't just think about their goals. They wrote them. They made lists. They sketched ideas. They journaled visions. They turned their inner world into something visible, something they could touch and refine. And here's the truth: what you write, you begin to believe. And what you believe, you begin to pursue. The simple act of putting words on paper builds faith. Faith that your dream isn't too far, that your idea isn't too foolish, that your future is worth building. When you write your dream, you also write your commitment to it. You tell yourself, this is not a passing thought. This is my path. You give yourself permission to start. You give yourself the power to act. Because someday is not a day of the week. Someday is where most dreams go to die. But when you write it down, you transform someday into today. You give your dream a schedule. You give it a timeline. You give it a heartbeat. There's something almost spiritual about writing down what you want. It's like sending a signal to your future self, to the universe, to life itself. Here's what I'm aiming for. Here's what I'm building. And life begins to respond. You start seeing opportunities that were invisible before. You begin noticing people, places, and moments that align with your vision. Writing it down doesn't make success easy, but it makes it possible. It gives your dream direction, and direction gives it momentum. You can't steer a dream you haven't defined. You can't chase a goal you haven't written. When you write, you take the dream out of the clouds and place it on the ground. You give it legs to walk, hands to work, a voice to speak. You give it structure. You give it life. And maybe you won't know exactly how it will all happen yet. But that's okay. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. The act of writing is the first step. It's the act of faith that says, I may not know the way, but I know I'm going. One day, you'll look back at the page where you first wrote your dream and realize, that was the day everything began to change. That was the day I wish became I will. That was the day someday turned into now. So write your dreams down. Write them boldly. Write them clearly. Write them as if they're already yours. Because when you do, the world begins to rearrange itself around your intention. The impossible starts to move closer, and the life you've been imagining begins to take shape, word by word, line by line, page by page.